Others travel through time as noble ladies or princesses, but this girl becomes a child stepmother. Not only does she have an ugly husband, but her son also has a strange obsession with pointy things. After a day of going crazy, Lier finally accepted this reality. It's not the time to be sad. To survive, she must build good relationships with her husband and son, but should she start by dealing with the indifferent husband or the eccentric son? Just then, she heard voices outside the window. Looking up, she saw a cute little boy and was immediately startled if he belonged to this household. Wasn't he the eccentric son? Such an adorable child was completely different from the cruel psychopath described in the novel. So the adorable son became her priority over the husband, but Lier, who had never raised a child, had no idea where to start. The original story also mentioned the poor relationship between the protagonist and his mother, leaving him to hide with a maid to observe. Seeing such a cute child, she couldn't understand why the protagonist's mother would neglect him. Unexpectedly, she was discovered the next second. Who's there? Lier had no choice but to awkwardly step out and greet them. The little guy completely ignored her and turned to leave. Lier didn't want to miss such a good opportunity. She quickly squatted down and grabbed her son's sleeve. "Cardi, can you stay?" Unexpectedly, he shook off her hand and shouted, "I don't want a mom." Running too fast, he accidentally tripped. Faced with his suddenly affectionate mother, Cardi was at a loss. "You never cared before, so why now?" he said angrily before storming off. Lier was left dumbfounded, still thinking about the events of the day even into the evening, wondering if Cardi's injury had gotten better. It seemed their relationship was even worse than expected. Sudden closeness would indeed make her son uneasy. It had to be done gradually. Seeing the letter on the table, she came up with an idea and had the maid deliver it. Hoping this would bring her closer to Cardi, the next morning Cardi woke up to see a gift placed beside him. While verbally expressing disdain, his hands had already opened the package, revealing a teddy bear, a letter, and a pink box of ointment. Opening the letter, he found it filled with Lier's concern and maternal love. Cardi was confused. Why was the mother who used to despise him so troublesome suddenly so affectionate? Why had she suddenly become so kind? He hadn't even noticed that someone else had appeared beside him. Mom muttered as she stuffed the letter into the drawer, unaware that the servant had already seen through everything and secretly saved every letter. Should I throw away the gift like always? Cardi hesitated while looking at the teddy bear toy. He decided to toss the box but kept the doll in his room, pouting while muttering, "It's not because Mom gave it to me, I just like teddy bears myself." He even asked the servant to help deliver a reply. Meanwhile, Lier was overjoyed to receive the letter, thinking her efforts were finally paying off. But upon opening it, the message simply read that he didn't want any more letters or gifts. Still, even rejection was a response, and she told herself progress would need to be gradual. She decided to put aside the task of winning over her husband and focus on Cardi for now, asking where he was. Hearing he was in the courtyard, she wondered, could it be he wants to see me? She quickly dressed and headed to the courtyard, where sure enough, the little guy was sitting alone. He hadn't touched the prepared pastries. "Are you waiting for me?" she asked. Blushing, Cardi arrogantly responded, "No, I just always come here." Lier replied, "Then I'll just sit back and watch you eat. I won't disturb you." She darted to a spot behind him and watched her son eat sweets, thinking today Cardi is especially adorable. However, a week later, Lier stared silently at a pile of invitation letters, hastily writing copy-paste responses, thinking now is not the time for socializing. Watching Cardi eat cake in the courtyard was a busy task. She even wrote an observation diary for it. "Today I saw him frowning so cute. When I talked to Cardi, he ignored me, also very cute. When she greeted him today, he nodded slightly, so cute." This peculiar mindset made the maid wonder aloud, "Madam, have you hurt your head? Isn't this more like an enemy's diary?" The maid hesitated, suggesting whether they should show it to the young master. Unexpectedly, this sparked Lier's interest. "Do you think showing Cardi this would make us closer?" Without hesitation, she prepared to show it to him. The maid was left dumbfounded, thinking, has Madam lost her mind? But surprisingly, it actually helped improve their relationship. Using a teddy bear lollipop as a peace offering, Lier managed to enter Cardi's room, only to be surprised that its decor didn't resemble that of a child at all. She unexpectedly discovered that the teddy bear she had given was lying obediently on the bed. The little guy, trying to cover it up, attempted to hide it with a pillow, saying, "I just didn't have time to throw it away." "So what are you here for?" Lier proudly pulled out a journal. "This is something Mom wrote. Do you want to take a look?" Seeing his shy reaction to reading the journal, she thought he must still be an innocent child who didn't understand love and certainly wouldn't imprison others. At that moment, a flock of pigeons flew across the sky. Lier casually asked her son, "What would you do if you encountered a rare bird?" Cardi nonchalantly replied, "Then I would build a delicate bird cage." Lier was pleased, thinking her son was still kind-hearted and knew how to create a beautiful home for birds. But then Cardi continued, "Since it's a rare bird, it should be locked up so it can't go anywhere." Beautiful things should be kept for admiration. His statement shocked Lier, making her want to take back her earlier thoughts. This behavior was exactly like the protagonist's childhood self. Looking innocent, he asked Mom, "Why aren't you saying anything?" Lier could only give an awkward smile. Cardi's thoughts left her a bit stunned. Internally panicking, she wondered what had gone wrong. Could it be that the protagonist had always been different, even as a child? What should she do now? Since that day, Lier had been constantly thinking about how to educate her child properly, to the point that she didn't even hear the maid calling her several times. "Madam, what's wrong? Are you troubled by something?" Lier thought for a moment but decided not to tell the maid. Unexpectedly, the maid speculated, "Is it because the master is coming back soon?" Her words left Lier stunned. Wasn't master referring to her husband? Parenting was something that should be handled by both parents together. She realized this could be an opportunity to talk to him and devised a plan to use their child as a reason to get closer to her husband. She asked, "When will the Duke return?" The maid responded, "In the next couple of days. We're supposed to move to another place." Lier was puzzled by this remark. "What does that mean?" The maid explained, "Recently, Madam has shown great care for the young master and the atmosphere in the house has improved a lot. So I wanted to ask you for a favor. Could you welcome the master warmly when he returns?" Lier felt helpless, realizing just how poor the relationship between the household's head and her husband was. Without hesitation, she agreed. After all, a strained marriage would negatively affect the child. "Tell the people at the Duke's residence that I will host a grand welcoming ceremony. My beloved child must never become someone tainted by blood. Since I've become his mother, I will save him." The maid, excited by the news, quickly ran off to prepare. Lier happily hummed a tune while handling documents but suddenly remembered something. "What is my husband's name?" Meanwhile, as the Duke neared home, he grew melancholic, wondering, "Will I be turned away again? I don't even know if anyone is home." Unexpectedly, he saw many people standing at the entrance of the Duke's residence. The Duke was astonished. This was the first time anyone had welcomed him back. And his wife was personally leading the welcomes. "Welcome back, Duke. I've been waiting for you." The Duke stood motionless for a long time before speaking. "Am I hallucinating? Call a doctor immediately." His knights hurriedly reassured him this isn't a hallucination. Still, the Duke couldn't believe it and kept staring at Lier. Lier reminded him, "It's quite cold out here. Let's go inside." Perhaps the fall had damaged his brain. He mentally steeled himself for a long while before deciding to enter. Lier deliberately had the maid leave them alone. The Duke warily looked around. Why is there no one here? Then he saw his smiling wife. It was the first time he'd seen her smile like that. His hand instinctively reached out to rest on her shoulder. "Let's go eat first," Lier suggested. The Duke was puzzled. Is something going on in the dining room? Lier pulled out a chair with a smile. "I have something to discuss with you." The Duke's grip on the chair tightened. He figured there had to be a reason for this sudden display of warmth. Throughout the meal, he sulked in silence. Lier was equally frustrated. "What's going on? He's being so cold even after I prepared so much." Furiously cutting her steak, she pondered how to start a conversation. "Duke, I have something to say." The Duke remained cold. "Go ahead then." Lier forced herself to speak. "The expedition must have been difficult, right? It's not an easy task." The Duke immediately set down his utensils. "Aren't you more interested in me getting injured? Be honest, what do you want?" Lier smiled on the surface but internally fumed, imagining giving him a military-style punch. "You're way too cautious. I just want to talk about the child's education." The Duke, faced with his wife's sudden change, was skeptical. "Don't you hate me? Why are you pretending to be close?" Lier, panicking, rushed to explain, "No, I'm not pretending." In her haste, she unexpectedly stumbled forward. Fortunately, the Duke dashed forward and caught her. Lier wanted to say something but was in too much pain to speak. The man who had just been mocking his wife moments ago could no longer hold back his emotions and let out a loud shout of concern. Anxiously asking why this suddenly happened, Lier couldn't help but retort, "You're really bold to ask me that when I welcomed you so warmly. Yet you didn't even express thanks and kept a sour face during the meal. How can your body, just barely recovered, endure this?" The Duke turned away with a sorrowful expression. "Don't you hate me? Every time I get close, you just yell at me to get lost." Holding Lier's hand, he said, "It's like you don't remember anything. Your hand felt cold just now. Even if you dislike me, at least let me do this." A sudden voice broke the ambiguous atmosphere and the Duke stepped away at the right moment. Lier's carefully prepared plan to get closer to her husband for the sake of her son had completely failed. She hadn't expected it to be so difficult to bond with the two men in the house. The next morning, Lier was woken up early by birdsong as she tried to review yesterday's plan. A warm family meal clearly won't work, she thought, still feeling nauseous. She had to come up with another plan quickly. Just then, someone knocked on the door. Lier was puzzled. She had already instructed the maid not to let anyone in. If someone was coming at this time, it must be Cardi or the Duke. With excitement, she opened the door. There stood her adorable son holding a bear-shaped lollipop. On the surface, she remained calm, but inwardly her heart was flipping. He must have come because he was worried about her being sick. The little guy turned his head away arrogantly and said, "Eat it. You'll feel better." Lier accepted it with a smile. "Thank you, son, for thinking of mom." Facing his beautiful mother, Cardi's face turned red as he awkwardly insisted, "I didn't come on my own. It's just because you called me." Lier knew her son's little thoughts but didn't expose them. "No matter the reason, I'm thankful that Cardi came." The little guy blushed and stared intently at Lier. Suddenly, he crossed his arms like a little adult and said, "If you're so tired you get indigestion, then don't eat with Dad." Lier thought it was out of concern and smiled, "Once I get used to it, it won't happen anymore." But Cardi's face darkened. "You're saying you'll keep eating with him?" Lier groaned inwardly, "I don't want to either, it's all for you." Unexpectedly, Cardi shouted, "Aren't you going to keep eating with Dad? Are mealtimes always going to be like this?" After speaking, he quickly ran off. Lier immediately realized he might be jealous of his father. She rushed forward and hugged the upset Cardi tightly. "To Mom, Cardi is the most important. Time with Cardi is more precious than with anyone else." Seeing her silent son, she thought he still disliked her until the next second when he hugged her back. "When you're sick, you have to sleep well and remember to eat my chocolate, okay?" Lier hadn't realized having such an adorable child could be so blissful. A few days later, Lier had fully recovered. She prepared a gift for Cardi, a special cake she had made after consulting the head chef. Hoping Cardi would like it, she went to the garden with anticipation and found the little guy there as expected. Seeing Lier approach, he even asked about her health. After sitting down, she took out the homemade cake. The little guy's eyes lit up instantly and he eagerly picked up a piece to taste. The next second, his face filled with concern as they both watched expectantly. "It's super awful," he said, though upon learning his mother had made it. He started devouring it anyway, and Lier couldn't stop him. While eating, he explained, "I'm fine, I'm eating because I want to." After finishing one piece, he wiped his mouth and asked for another. Lier looked at the little guy across from her with gratitude. "This is not the male protagonist from the novel, is it? He's clearly just an ordinary, cute child. Thank you, Mom will keep working hard." The next day, Lier decided to continue with her plan to get closer to her husband for her son. She eagerly knocked on the office door. The door was opened by the Duke's assistant. Lier carefully walked over to the desk and said, "I'm not quite sure, but can we talk privately?" To her surprise, the Duke immediately rejected her with a cold, "I'm very busy." His tone was as cold as the snow falling in winter. After saying that, he added, "Didn't you hear me? I'm very busy, please leave." The assistant, who was a keen observer, quickly stated that he would leave. "There's no need for that, go back to your position." Lier was speechless. He couldn't spare even a moment to talk with his wife. In the end, she had no choice but to leave. As soon as she stepped out, she gave the Duke a mental dragon-subduing palm. It seemed that the Duke wasn't going to be easily won over. She would have to find another excuse next time. The following day, Lier was in her room thinking about what fairy tale book to read to her son. At that moment, the maid handed her a letter. Opening it, she found it was a letter thanking her for attending the child's birthday party. Lier was puzzled. Hadn't she already declined the previous invitation? Suddenly, she remembered the invitation she had forgotten last time due to the maid's conversation. "A birthday party?" Lier groaned in frustration, but the maid suddenly looked startled and asked, "Are we preparing a birthday party for the young master?" "Though it's still early, I'll do my best. But the Marquis of Fenzer, I feel like I've heard of him somewhere." Suddenly, she recalled that he was the handsome blonde man in the book who worked at the Land Administration Bureau. But if he worked there, then he must be the one Cardi killed. Suddenly, Lier felt a complex, indescribable feeling toward her son. Now, Cardi shouldn't kill him, right? "That's right, I will raise him to be a normal child." On the other side, the Duke was still waiting for his wife to come to him. Ever since the horse-drawn carriage incident, he had become strange. He used to be cold and distant, never smiling at him. But recently, his wife always found various reasons to see him, always with a smile on her face. He quietly wondered if today his wife would also come to him smiling. The ink was almost running out, but he was completely oblivious. The assistant was so shocked by his exhausted appearance. "It seems like the madam is taking more medicine than usual today. Should I go check?" To his surprise, the Duke stood up, citing that it was too stuffy in here and he needed to go out for a walk, leaving the poor assistant to deal with piles of documents alone. He didn't forget to remind the assistant at the door, "If you're looking for the madam, she often goes to the garden. I hope you have a great time." As the Duke walked near the library, he heard his son yelling Lier. Then he heard his wife's voice, "Why does Cardi say mommy is a liar? Every time you go find her first. Didn't you say I'm the most important?" Hearing this, the Duke became unsettled, however, before he could feel happy. He overheard Lier saying, "Of course, it's best to be with Cardi." The little guy still pouted, clearly displeased. Lier pulled her son's hand and said, "Actually, I just wanted to ask Cardi if he wants to join me for the Marquis Fenzer's birthday. Should we bring a gift?" After hearing the affirmative answer, tears couldn't help but stream down her face. "You have never prepared a birthday gift for me." This also made Lier suddenly recall the memories of the garden master. The little one only wanted a birthday greeting from his mother. But he was met with indifference. She didn't expect the garden master to be so harsh with the child, just recalling it was heartbreaking. Lier tried hard to calm Cardi's emotions. "I'm sorry, my dear, I shouldn't have treated you like that. I'll never leave you alone again." After much effort, she finally managed to stop the little one from crying. "Shall we hold a grand birthday party for Cardi?" The little one initially refused, but when he heard there would be a huge birthday cake, he was completely tempted. He still acted proudly, saying whatever. Lier didn't expect the birthday wish to be the gift Cardi wanted the most. Thinking about how she used to be, Lier's heart broke even more. "How about tomorrow we set aside some time for Mom? We'll hold the party in Cardi's favorite courtyard. How about that?" The Duke, who had been hiding outside the door, also overheard the key information about tomorrow's party being held in the courtyard. To prepare for this, the Duke forced his assistant to work overtime and finish all the tasks in advance. The next day, he arrived at the courtyard early. He discovered they hadn't planned to invite him. He had arrived just as they were singing the birthday song. The little one also blew out the candles amidst everyone's well wishes. Lier felt as though she was being stared at. Turning around, she locked eyes with the Duke. "Duke, what brings you here? What are you doing?" Lier pointed to the people in the courtyard. "As you can see, we're hosting a birthday party. Cardi said he dislikes crowds, so we only invited a few close people." The Duke suddenly seemed a bit displeased. "Why do you always do things so out of character?" Lier couldn't help but think, he always says he's so busy, so why is he suddenly here? Thus, the two began a black and white battle. For some reason, Lier could only occasionally remember the original owner's matters, and she was completely unaware of the Duke's questions. But she didn't forget to invite the Duke to participate in Cardi's education, only to hear the Duke's irrelevant question. "Why have you been calling my son AI Cheng? Why do you always call me Dukes? You don't know my name, do you?" Stunned by her husband's question, Lier was momentarily speechless. She had specifically asked earlier what his name was, but now she couldn't remember. She had never called him by his full name and wanted to play dumb to avoid it. Unexpectedly, the Duke kept pressing her. In a panic, she blurted out AI Cheng with a clever grin. The Duke's heart raced, but he silently turned his face away, maintaining his composure. Lier thought she might have said something wrong, or perhaps she forgot his full name and just called him AI Cheng on impulse. She awkwardly explained, "I just wanted to call you AI Cheng. Is that okay?" The Duke couldn't hear her explanation anymore. His mind was filled with thoughts like, "She used to call me Duke, but now she calls me AI Cheng. Has she opened up to me? If this continues, I..." With a red face, he quickly muttered, "I have something to do. I'll leave now." He walked out of her sight in a clumsy, hurried manner. Just as the Duke left, Cardi quickly ran out and grabbed his mother's skirt. "What did you and Dad talk about? We didn't talk about anything." Thinking to herself, could it be that the child wants his father's blessing? She never considered this possibility, so she squatted down and apologized to her son. "Are you angry because I didn't invite Dad to the birthday party?" Actually, Dad also wanted to give Cardi his blessing, but he's too busy. He left before he could even say hi. The little one didn't want his father's blessing. He just wanted his mom to return and eat cake together. Lier couldn't help but shout inwardly, "Our Cardi is just too adorable." The little one was eating the cake in small bites under everyone's gaze. He didn't forget to ask his mom if she would give him her blessing in the future. His cute behavior left everyone speechless. "From now on, every year I will give Cardi my blessing." The subsequent birthday parties would be even grander. Lier couldn't help but shed tears. A voice in her heart echoed, "I hope you can forgive me this time," even though she couldn't hear it. Cardi, seeing his mom suddenly crying, became very anxious. "I heard that eating sweets can make you feel better. This cake is delicious, try it." Lier took a bite of the cake from Cardi's hand. She wasn't sure if it was because of the strange memory that had invaded her mind earlier, but she felt like she didn't deserve to be this happy. A few days later, Lier had finished replying to the social letters but didn't know where to go next. Her son was unhappy that she went to play without him and insisted that she must find him first next time. Meanwhile, Lier continued to visit the Duke every day. This time, she even broke tradition and stayed with him. But she asked, "Can I come to see you first next time?" Lier was overwhelmed by this father-son duo. "How can they be so identical? I only have one body, how can I be in two places at once?" Just as Lier was distressed, the maid suggested a solution, and that's how the current scene came about. The three of them were in the same room but said nothing. Lier pretended to drink tea, unable to figure out how things had turned out like this. This wasn't going to work. So she tried to speak and ease the tension, but as soon as she spoke two words, both turned to her at once and asked, "What is it?" Lier didn't expect this. She awkwardly said, "I wasn't calling you Duke, I was calling you AI Cheng." To her surprise, the Duke really liked this casual nickname. Lier had no choice but to repeat, "I meant our Cardi." Even without looking, Lier could feel the Duke's gaze. She chose to ignore it. "Do you remember our agreement to celebrate the birthday?" Cardi, who had the upper hand, was quite smug. "You mean the one where Mom and I go together?" He deliberately emphasized Mom and I, and the Duke, hearing this, involuntarily broke his pen, completely distracted from his work. To ensure Cardi wouldn't bully the Marquis, Lier made an agreement with Cardi to get along well with other children of his age. Cardi obediently agreed to his mother's request and behaved so well that Lier couldn't help but praise him. Before she could finish, she was interrupted by a flurry of papers flying around and the Duke's loud cough. Lier could only walk over and comfort him. "Are you okay? Do you want me to call a doctor?" The Duke didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his wife's hand. "Do you really like our son that much?" Lier was somewhat puzzled by the Duke's sudden question. "Of course, he's our son." Hearing this, both of them were very happy. One was happy because of the hour and the other because, "Of course, I like my son." Lier didn't expect these two men to be so easily satisfied. They were like completely different people from when they first showed caution. The next day, the mother and son wore matching outfits to attend the birthday party. The little one secretly pulled off his tie and coquettishly asked his mom to help him tie it. Just as she tied the knot, she was startled by people suddenly appearing behind her. "Are you here to escort us?" The Duke quickly came up with an excuse, saying he had to go out for a bit. His assistant shook his head at this reason. "At critical moments, I still have to rely on my wife. It's really amazing that your route matches the Duke's exactly. How about we share a carriage?" Before the words were even finished, Cardi directly refused. Lier also thought the carriage today was too small and might not fit them, but the atmosphere between the two was very strange today. The Duke wanted to get closer to his son, but Cardi kept rejecting him out of shyness. As his mother, of course, Lier wanted to help, so she suggested preparing another carriage for the Duke and Cardi to ride together. Both of them immediately froze, then quickly walked in opposite directions. Lier had a feeling that she had said something wrong again and could only silently board the carriage, but the little one seemed still upset. Lier had to use her special tactic. "I heard that every party at Marquis Fen's place has amazing desserts." Sure enough, when desserts were mentioned, Cardi's eyes lit up. "I even specially asked them to make Cardi's favorite walnut pie." The little one finally couldn't hide his excited expression. But then he realized he was still upset and turned his face away, acting proudly. "I'm not a little kid who likes to eat." Soon, the carriage arrived at Marquis Fen's mansion. After getting off the carriage, the little one gentlemanly helped his mother down. As they entered the mansion, they saw many exquisite desserts. Lier looked at Cardi with joy but pretended to act annoyed. It was just too cute. Up ahead, Lady Fens came to welcome them. Lier was very excited about the Marquis's image ball, which like a camera could turn photos into albums. She eagerly asked the Duchess where she could buy one. Cardi's face suddenly turned cold as if a flame had appeared. "You're not getting away with this," he said, glaring. Lier could only feel regret. He was so cute but couldn't be the focus. The next moment, the two of them entered their own battle zone. Lier followed Lady Fens to the garden, but before she could sit down, she was met with sarcastic comments. "So this is from the Lapara Duke's family. Since everyone is here, can I ask a question? I bought a dog, but it doesn't listen to its owner. Is it because it's expensive?" She then turned to Lier. "What do you think, Mrs. Lapara?" Lier was caught off guard by the sudden question and had no idea what this person was talking about. But she still honestly gave her opinion. "Maybe you should patiently teach it so it can behave better." The two people nearby couldn't help but interrupt. "I think it's unnecessary to spend so much effort on a dog. If it's disobedient, it should be dealt with immediately. An expensive dog that doesn't know its place should be replaced." Lier instantly realized that their words were loaded with hidden meaning. The dog and the owner referred to her and the Duke. "What's wrong with this woman?" Fortunately, after they finished talking, they didn't continue with the topic, so Lier decided not to engage any further. But to her surprise, the fat woman came to pick another fight. "I think if the Duke allows you to invite guests into the mansion, then the husband should listen to his wife, right? So I think you can invite me." Lier declined, saying it wasn't convenient without the Duke's approval. "Oh dear, it seems the Duke really." Before she could finish speaking, she was interrupted by the Marchioness. "I also have a very cute pet eagle, but sometimes I can't understand what she says. She always says strange, rude things. I don't know where she learned them." Lier, who was standing by, was so moved that tears streamed down her face. The Marchioness was on her side. Immediately, Lier eagerly asked, "How did you correct her?" "What else could I do? After all, she's just a bird. How can I get rid of her for a few rude words? It's not like she's having an affair with the royal knights behind my back." The fat woman nearby immediately blushed. Realizing her own affair had been exposed, she hastily muttered, "I have something to handle," and hurriedly left the courtyard. The little followers also quickly slipped away. After this incident, Lier's admiration for the Marchioness grew like an unstoppable river. In the courtyard, only the two of them remained, facing each other as old enemies from the past life. The boy came up and the first thing he did was praise his mother. Cardi was sitting at the table eating walnut candy. The boy's sudden interruption made Cardi slightly disdainful. If it weren't for my mom's special instruction, I wouldn't play with such a childish kid. But still, he generously took out a piece of the candy and gave it to the boy. This walnut candy was specially made by my family's chef for my party. Aren't you jealous? Not saying anything further, Cardi remembered his mother's words. He should get along well with other children. He silently listened to the boy's chatter, but when the boy said, "My mom praises me every day. Does your mom do that?" Cardi couldn't hold back any longer and wanted to compare. "My mom praises me so often that it's annoying." "I don't think so. My mom must do it better than your mom. You don't even know how often my mom praises me." And so the two continued to compete with each other for 10 minutes, until a fat child interrupted them. The child pointed at Cardi and said, "My mom says you're a wild dog with barbarian blood in you. Playing with you will bring a curse." Cardi, upon hearing this, simply asked, "Can you take responsibility for what you just said?" This made the fat child break into a cold sweat and run away. At this moment, the fat woman who had fled earlier came to find her child. Seeing this, Cardi couldn't help but comment, "She and her mother really do look alike." Meanwhile, the two mothers were still exchanging parenting tips. Suddenly, Lier felt a splitting headache as unfamiliar memories surged in. A man was shouting at little Lier. "You must use your face to build connections with the nobility." The man seemed to be the original owner's father. Once she recovered, she planned to find Cardi and return home, following the Marchioness to the courtyard. She was still thinking about whether Cardi would get into a fight. After all, the scenes from the novel were vivid in her mind, but then she heard the news that Cardi was crying. She immediately ran to the scene. Upon seeing her mother, Cardi ran into her arms, crying. "Who made my child cry?" In Lier's view, it was fine to bully her, but Cardi was off limits. "Madam Chatty, you'd better explain what happened." The fat woman trembled and stammered, "My child made a small mistake and said your son has barbarian blood in him. But you know, this is just a joke between children. Do you really think this is something you can ignore? I will say this only once. Please apologize to my son." The fat woman, realizing she couldn't get away with it, grabbed her son and made him apologize. The boy had no choice but to come out and apologize. Unexpectedly, the fat woman still tried to reach out to touch Cardi. Lier immediately protected the child behind her and warned the fat woman, "I will not allow anyone who hits children to touch my child. I will let my husband handle this matter. In my eyes, the child is not at fault. The mistake lies with the parents who don't know how to teach their children to be kind. No one can be so careless in raising a child. This is why I can't forgive you." After saying this, she took the little one and went home. On the carriage, she kept comforting Cardi. She had originally thought the closed-off male lead in the novel would be a bully, but she didn't expect that Cardi was still just a child. "I'm sorry, Mom should be with you." Although the little one had just cried, he hadn't forgotten to show off to his mom, saying he had been getting along well with the other children. "So Mom, don't leave me anymore." These words made Lier feel heartbroken. Since coming here, she had been working hard to make up for the maternal love Cardi had been missing. But she still couldn't understand why the original owner treated the child this way. In Lier's heart, Cardi was no longer the male lead of this world. He was completely her son now. At this moment, the little one suddenly pouted and got angry. "I kept my promise. Don't I deserve some gift?" Lier mischievously pretended to say there was no gift. The little one pouted even harder, but when he heard his mom say, "Of course there's a gift. I can grant you a wish," he immediately became happy. "Then I want Mom to read me a fairy tale every night." Lier was confused. She didn't expect Cardi's only wish to be this simple. That child said his mother read him a story every day. Lier then understood. The little one was comparing his mom to that other mom. "I hope next time Cardi can have fun too." By the time they returned to the Duke's mansion, it was already evening. The weather was gradually getting warmer. "How about we go boating together to cool off?" Cardi was very happy when he heard they would go together. But together should not include Dad. "I don't want to go with Dad, I only want to go with Mom." However, Lier had not forgotten that a harmonious family is necessary to raise a good child. "Mom will try her best for you." That evening, after returning to the room, Lier finally had time to think about the events of the day. She didn't understand why Lady Zaddy had so much hostility. She also heard that the Duke was called a barbarian and guessed that perhaps the garden master had been forced into marriage. That's why she didn't like her husband and child. Lier came here with no memories of the garden master, only some past habits. Lier felt that something was strange, so she asked the maid what barbarian meant in the Empire. To her surprise, the maid was greatly frightened by the question. Lier had to explain that she had heard it from the Countess. Lady Zaddy's son said that Cardi, with the heart of a barbarian, would curse anyone who came into contact with him. After that accident, he had forgotten many things. The maid didn't expect her lady had lost her memory recently, which explained the drastic changes. It also explained why she was so nice to the young master. Lier understood from the maid's words that the maid was worried that if the lady regained her memory, she would become like before. Lier firmly stated that she wouldn't change. Now she understood how important Cardi was. However, the maid still believed that this matter should not be known by the Duke. If the Duke knew that his wife only treated him well again because she lost her memory, he would surely feel so hurt that he'd close off his heart. However, the Duke would never hate his wife, otherwise he wouldn't have spent so much gold to marry her. Lier was extremely shocked upon hearing this. She hadn't expected that the head gardener had been sold off by her father. She always thought the Duke had taken her by force. It turns out the Duke was the one who saved the head gardener from a dark family. With this, she agreed with the maid's idea. To avoid suspicion, she refrained from asking about the matter herself. She told the maid to report back once there were follow-up results. After the maid left, Lier tried to recall the head gardener's memories but ended up with nothing. Cardi is a child who lacks love. Though she says she doesn't care, deep down, she's always hoped for her mother's love. The Duke also appears indifferent, but he has been caring for her in unseen ways. Both of them are truly good people. What memories is the head gardener hiding to treat them this way? A week later, summer arrived. The maid excitedly brought good news about the chatty Count's family. Countess Chatty is no longer the Countess. Lier hadn't expected things to progress so quickly. The maid leaned in and revealed an even more shocking piece of news. Countess Chatty had an affair with a guard. Moreover, the child at the party wasn't even the Count's biological son, so what Lady Finzel said at the party was true. No wonder Countess Chatty fled in embarrassment back then. However, all of this was their own doing. Now it was time to check on her precious little son. She asked the maid where Cardi was and learned that he was playing in the library. She decided to bring some sweets to find him. But when she arrived at the library, it was unusually quiet. She called out Cardi's name, but no one answered. Finally, she found her son sleeping in a corner. She wanted to wake him up and take him to sleep on the bed. But when she touched Cardi's little face, it was burning hot and his skin looked red. Lier panicked immediately. She didn't know whether it was because of a fever or the influence of flame magic. Frantically, she picked Cardi up to take him to a doctor. The boy didn't mind making himself sick just to experience the feeling of having his mom by his side. At the last gathering, his friends not only bragged about their moms telling them bedtime stories every night, but also how their moms stayed by their side, holding their hands when they were sick. Cardi had never experienced this feeling even once. She also wanted her mom to stay by her side when she was sick. Though she felt this way deep down, outwardly, she would complain about the boy's weak health. She believed that her mom's love was far more significant than what ordinary kids received. Unexpectedly, her body's magic went out of control and made her sick. After the doctor examined her, it turned out to be just temporary physical pain. However, this condition might continue for a while longer. Even so, Lier remained very worried, as Cardi's body now felt as hot as fire. The doctor explained that Cardi's internal flame magic was growing, and that her body needed to adapt to the sudden changes. Only basic treatment could be provided for now. Even with this explanation, Lier was still deeply concerned, so she decided to stay with Cardi tonight and personally take care of her. Cardi, due to fever, slept restlessly, crying and saying, "So hot my head hurts." Lier felt heartbroken looking at the little one. In a daze, Cardi opened her eyes and saw her mom. Unexpectedly, Cardi's first time calling her mom happened at such a moment. The little one pitifully said that he actually didn't get along well with the other children and hoped Lier wouldn't hate him. He promised to try harder in the future. Lier hurriedly hugged the child and comforted him, saying that Mom would never hate Cardi. She was very happy that he could remember the promise with Mom. From now on, he didn't have to force himself to get along with other children. Cardi's happiness was the most important thing. A few minutes later, she finally comforted the crying child. She placed Cardi in the blanket and reminded him to rest more so he could get better quickly. Once he was well, they would go rowing as promised. It would definitely be very fun. Cardi suddenly asked his mom to read a storybook until he fell asleep. Though Lier didn't understand, she picked up the book. Just like that, Cardi gradually fell asleep to the sound of Lier reading. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the Duke, who was always a worry, suddenly barged in and shouted, "Lier, why aren't you asleep yet?" Lier hurriedly gestured for him to keep quiet. She hadn't expected the Duke not to have gone to bed yet. She thought he must have come because he was worried about Cardi, working late into the night and still finding time to visit. However, it seemed he liked hiding his emotions. She reassured the Duke not to worry. She would stay here with Cardi all night, but this only made the Duke puzzled. He would never have acted like this before. Lier explained that she wanted to make some changes. "But you've always hated me and Cardi. That day when the child cried, why did you get angry? Even if it was true, you should have remained calm," she added, as he suddenly asked to hold her hand. Lier hesitated before reaching out. The Duke questioned again, "You never let me touch you before. Now you not only call me by my name but are willing to let me hold your hand. Did you lose your memory after that incident?" Realization hit the Duke that his wife had lost her memory. If it were the old Lier, she would have always been cold and distant, not like this, gentle and affectionate. Lier hadn't expected that the secret she wanted to bury deep inside was discovered. She was afraid that the Duke would be hurt if he knew the truth. The Duke, however, felt that without all the past events, perhaps Lier would continue to treat him well like she was now. He was deeply attached to Lier's smile, like a flower blooming in spring. He also longed for the soft voice calling his name, hoping that Lier would continue to treat him like this until she regained her memory, even if it was just for a short period of tenderness. Facing her husband's heartfelt confession, Lier could only feel out of breath. His arms were too tight around her, but she still answered the Duke seriously. "If this is what you want, I will do it. I know you're a gentle and considerate husband. Your coldness was also because you were afraid that once I regained my memory, I would continue to hate you like before. You would also forget everything that's happened now." The Duke was deeply moved, realizing that his wife understood everything in his heart. Hearing his wife's promise that she wouldn't forget his kindness just because she regained her memory, he finally felt a bit of relief. "I was so afraid that all of this would suddenly disappear. If you no longer say anything to me, then I really wouldn't know what to do." Lier couldn't help but laugh when she saw the Duke like this. This was a completely different person from the cold and sarcastic Duke she had first known. Now he was so cute. The Duke explained that back then he didn't know Lier had lost her memory, he just thought she was playing him. Now he realized the truth wasn't like that. He also suddenly confessed his feelings, saying, "I will always look forward to your smile. Even when you're cold to me, I still love you. No matter how pushy you were to me before, your smile can still melt my heart." Lier was shy from the Duke's sudden closeness and confession. A handsome, wealthy man saying sweet words right in front of her who wouldn't be moved. Although Lier was happy their relationship had progressed, this pose was too embarrassing. Plus, Cardi was still sleeping beside them. Stammering, Lier asked the Duke not to get so close, only to be met with ruthless teasing. "How did my wife become a stammerer? Her face is so red." The Duke mischievously leaned in even closer. Lier quickly stopped him. "Aren't you here to see Cardi?" "I came to see Cardi, but I'm also very worried about you." Lier pouted, complaining that the Duke never said sweet things before. Every time she went to his office, he would refuse her due to being busy with work. The Duke patiently explained that he actually wanted to visit Lier, knowing that these happy moments would pass quickly. "So I cherish them more. I'm actually very scared, but I can't bear to leave. From now on, I won't run away. I will always love you." The Duke, seemingly aloof and powerful on the outside, secretly competed fiercely with his son for affection. After confessing his feelings, the Duke wanted to stay close to his wife, but Lier didn't expect him to be so willing. To stay here with her, he even handed over his work to the miserable employees. Ignoring their son, who was sleeping beside them, he kept talking about his wife. Fortunately, Cardi woke up from his sleep. Lier quickly turned around to check on the little one's condition. Cardi, still groggy, said, "My head feels dizzy." Lier brought a damp towel and placed it on his forehead. The little one didn't forget to tease his dad. "If only Mom was the only one here with me, I'd feel better faster." Hearing this, the Duke felt something was off. Sure enough, the next moment, Lier gently asked the Duke to leave. The Duke, wanting to prove he was still useful, started to say he had been like this as a child. Before he could finish, his spoiled son interrupted him. "Mom, he's so loud, my head hurts." The Duke couldn't believe his son's acting was so impressive, almost Oscar-worthy. Hiding in Lier's arms, Cardi smirked at his dad, who was left watching from the side and facing the risk of being kicked out. The Duke wanted to say something, but Lier stopped him. "Cardi needs to rest, please leave." After hearing this, the Duke reluctantly left. Victorious, Cardi became even more smug. The next day, as soon as the sun rose, Lier was persuaded by the servants sent by the Duke to go back to sleep. After sleeping for a while, she had been working ever since, inquiring about Cardi's condition when she heard someone knock on the door. Lier's first reaction was that it was the Duke. She quickly reminded herself to stay calm. Shortly after the maid entered with Cardi, Lier didn't expect it was her son who had come. She hurried to check his condition. The little one said, "I feel so lonely without Mom around." Lier was very pleased. Cardi had finally opened up to her. The little one tugged at her skirt, asking if she was busy. "If you're not busy, I want to stay with you." Lier was worried Cardi might get bored while she was handling things. Cardi happily said it's fine and ran to get a stool to sit by the desk. "I'll sit here quietly and wait for you to finish your work, then you can read me a fairy tale." She sat there until it started raining outside. The maid sighed, mentioning that it had been raining frequently lately. Lier remembered her plan for a lake trip with Cardi that still hadn't happened. It seemed like they would have to change the time. Cardi, eating cake, didn't seem to care. "I don't recommend it, but Dad is definitely too busy to go." He has always had a lot of official duties and doesn't like doing these things. Just as he finished speaking, the main person appeared in front of the two of them. Lier was startled by the sudden appearance of the person. Just as Cardi said, I am indeed very busy, but you will always be my #1 priority. I will definitely make time to go with you. Cardi then turned her attention to the carriage. Mom will ride in the same carriage and accompany me, right? Before Lier could respond, the Duke said, we are a couple, so we should be together. The big and small ones began to argue while using the carriage as an excuse, with Lier caught in the middle being pulled in both directions. I must make them live in harmony so that Cardi can have a good family atmosphere. A thought suddenly appeared in my mind. I stood up and told them not to argue anymore and to leave the room. Both of them were shocked upon hearing this. Father and son started fighting over the affection. This childish behavior finally met with Lier's punishment. If you keep arguing, both of you should leave. After saying this, Lier directed her criticism at her husband. As a father, how can you be so childish toward your child? The Duke tried to argue. But what followed was even harsher criticism from his wife. Afterward, she looked at Cardi. You are also at fault. As a son, you should not speak to your father like that. Your father also wants to spend more time with you, but he has adult responsibilities that he must fulfill. We should understand Dad. Cardi felt guilty after hearing his mother's words and immediately confessed his mistake, promising not to act like that again. However, Lier wasn't planning to let the father and son off so easily. The mischievous smile on Lier's face made both of them inwardly worry. Now, both of you must hold hands until you can peacefully coexist. Both of them turned pale upon hearing this. Lier completely ignored their protests. She ordered the maid to take the father and son to the hall. The two of them arrived in the hall with expressionless faces. To fulfill Lier's request, the Duke directly picked up his son. This way, holding hands was a bit easier. Cardi pouted and handed his hand to his father, then turned to tell the maid to report this scene to Mom. The Duke carried Cardi through the mansion. This unusual behavior caused the servants to gossip. The Duke felt embarrassed, not expecting so many servants in the mansion. Cardi was also complaining, this is all because of Dad. If you agreed to let me and Mom sit in the same carriage, we wouldn't have ended up like this. The Duke, facing his son's complaint, could only awkwardly turn his head away. He finally realized that Cardi was just a few years old, and here he was, treating him like this because of his selfishness. No wonder his wife was upset. But Cardi never expected that his father would suddenly apologize. His eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at his father. Then he shyly turned his face away. No matter what, Mom still likes me more. The Duke, unwilling to admit defeat, replied, even if Lier likes you more, I am still her husband. But the idea that she likes you more is just a misunderstanding. The maid behind them had been watching everything and noticed that their relationship seemed to be getting closer. After circling the mansion, they returned to the room, only to find Lier had already fallen asleep, lying on the table. Seeing this as a perfect opportunity to show his strength as a husband, the Duke decisively picked up Lier, preparing to carry her back to the room. However, he found that she unexpectedly felt very affectionate. The maid watched the couple and couldn't help but ship them. The lady often worries that His Highness doesn't eat well. Why not eat together and take care of the lady instead? She even performed dramatically, saying the lady often eats alone and has no appetite. She always wants to find you to eat together but doesn't know how to ask. Oh no, I accidentally revealed this secret. It's my fault. The Duke, hearing that his wife wanted to eat with him, was overjoyed in his heart. He promised not to tell anyone, but is it really true? Of course, I would never lie to you, Your Highness. After receiving the satisfactory answer, the Duke prepared to carry his wife back to the room. Who would have thought that their son would stop them, saying, Mom took care of me all night, and I want to be with her. The Duke had already anticipated that his son would seize the opportunity. So the two of them together escorted Lier back to the room. Cardi looked at the sleeping Lier and sighed, Mom really looks beautiful. And now she's very kind to me. The Duke agreed with his son. In the past, I would get angry with anyone. Now it's completely different. Do you remember my favorite cake flavor? Especially when I was reading, you were like an angel. The Duke proudly agreed with his son's words. The sudden compliment made Lier, who had already woken up, blush with shyness. Although it was embarrassing, they seemed to be getting along very well. Now, should she open her eyes or pretend to be asleep? She finally decided to continue pretending to sleep, but after a long time, she heard no sound. She cautiously opened one eye to check the situation and found that both father and son were looking at her in unison. With a look of determination, they began to shower her with compliments. The sudden praise made Lier, who was pretending to sleep, blush. It turned out that father and son had known she was awake all along. Lier had no choice but to awkwardly pretend she didn't know anything and ask if their relationship had improved. Cardi quickly answered the question, because Mom wants us to do this, we will get better and better. In my eyes, you are the best mom in the world. If you're still tired, you can continue sleeping, but can I sleep with you? Lier immediately hugged the little one after hearing this. Proud Cardi began teasing his dad. I think it's time for you to leave now. Didn't you forget what mom said? Don't talk to dad like that. Cardi held his mom's hand, feeling shy, and said, I just love mom so much that I want to be the person you love most. I don't dislike dad. Lier happily hugged the little one, and the Duke, who had been watching, spoke pitifully, can I sleep with you too? Cardi generously patted the space next to him and said, this time I'll allow it. I agreed because mom wants us to get better, so the Duke got to sleep in the big bed as he wished. Soon, little Cardi fell into a deep sleep. The warm scene made the Duke feel like it wasn't real. Everything now felt like a dream, a scene he had fantasized about countless nights. He never expected it to come true. And there was his wife's smiling face, saying that she wanted him to agree to go rowing in a few days. He couldn't help but think of how, when they were children, she invited him to play together a few days later. Then he tightly embraced the two of them, saying, this time I will keep my promise. The next day, as soon as he arrived at work, his assistant noticed that he was in a good mood, but there was a lot of work to do today. We still have so much time, why are we in such a hurry to finish? He unexpectedly found out about the master's record of going boating. No wonder recently he personally went to many places to investigate. The assistant, who also wanted to gossip, was ruthlessly sent by the Duke to work. Just then Lier knocked on the office door, and a little one popped out, coldly saying, Dad is very busy, how about we come back later? The Duke, a second later, said please come in, and Cardi was already trying to pull his mom away. After Lier entered, she got straight to the point and asked the Duke if he had time to go boating together since the weather had gotten better recently. The Duke, remembering the warmth of getting out of bed in the morning, wanted nothing more than to drop all his work on the assistant. However, he still kept a calm expression, saying, I've found a great place, and I'll make time next week to go. Lier hadn't expected the Duke to have planned ahead. The assistant quickly chimed in, wishing you and your family a pleasant holiday. This is also the reason you've been working so hard recently, isn't it? You didn't even go for your morning exercise and came straight to work. A few days later, the maid had already prepared the travel meals early. To prepare for the trip, Lier had even dressed up. At this moment, Cardi also ran over in the same blue outfit. After the last event, the child had not given up on competing for his mother's attention. Mom, I want to ride the carriage with you. Lier quickly saw through the little one's scheme. Cardi, you want to ride the carriage with Dad while I sit next to you, right? Upon hearing this, Cardi pouted and softly said, I just want to sit with Mom, but didn't dare complain about her arrangement. Not far away, the Duke was already waiting by the carriage. Seeing his wife dressed differently from usual with her shoulders exposed, he blushed. It's so sunny today, you should wear more or you'll get sunburned. He then looked away and softly said, such clothes should only be worn when I'm the only one around. Lier instantly became shy. The Duke, with an embarrassed expression, said, saying that is really strange. Cardi in time interrupted, Mom, it's too hot. Let's go inside. The Duke immediately picked up Cardi and looked at his wife. Inside the carriage, I'm wet from the cold magic. It's too hot outside, let's hurry inside. Lier extended her hand, confused as to why the Duke was smiling like that and even more confused that she thought he looked even more handsome. Just like that, the three of them boarded the carriage and set off. Compared to the atmosphere when they first met, it now felt like a harmonious family of three. Soon, the carriage arrived at the destination. The Duke was the first to get off the carriage, ready to help his wife out while reminding her to be careful. However, the hand he was going to take was grabbed by their son. Thanks, Dad. Looking at Cardi's smug expression, Lier couldn't help but laugh secretly. These two really like to compete in secret. Without saying a word, the Duke picked up his son and, despite Cardi's protest to help his mom out of the carriage, successfully helped his wife down. Cardi pouted unhappily. The Duke didn't plan to put his son down and instead pulled his wife along. Shall we go now? Lier shyly asked, how long will it take to get there? She received her husband's mischievous response, if you can't walk, should I carry you too? Cardi hurriedly blocked his father's mouth, don't talk before we get to the boat. Lier, seeing the cute sight of the father and son, couldn't help but look forward to their next outing. A while later, the three of them finally arrived at the lakeside. Lier wondered, it doesn't seem like this is the first time the Duke has been here. The Duke replied, that's because I've always wanted to come here with you. Today I'll keep my promise from last time. The woman unexpectedly discovered her husband's secret. Lier listened to the Duke's words as if it had been promised long ago. The Duke explained that this was before they knew they would have children. Lier hadn't expected her husband's promise from so long ago to still be something he wanted to keep. I'm willing to do anything for you. Lier hadn't expected her husband's promise from so long ago to still be something he wanted to keep. I'm willing to do anything for you. Faced with her husband's sudden confession, Lier blushed instantly. She tried to restrain herself, not letting her heart race every time she saw the Duke smile like that. Just then, the boat approached, and the Duke immediately picked up Cardi and put him on the boat. He then turned around and pulled Lier, still on the shore. After the little one got on the boat, he happily patted the seat beside him, urging his mom to come quickly. Isn't the view here beautiful? It's just like Caddy's eyes, so pretty. Upon hearing this, Caddy looked excitedly at Lier, surprised to learn that in her mom's eyes she was so beautiful. Once the three were safely on the boat, it set off toward the lake. The boatman reminded them that the boat would sway slightly. Caddy immediately acted coquettishly toward her mom, saying, "The boat is shaking so much, Mom, I'm scared." As Lier held her son, she felt like something was missing in her hands. Suddenly, she realized she had forgotten the lunch she had prepared. In a panic, she wanted to ask the boatman to turn around. The two, unsure of what was happening, nervously asked what was going on. Lier explained that she had left the food in the carriage. "That's very important. I can't let my husband and son go hungry." The Duke smiled helplessly. "You're still so clumsy." Suddenly, a strange memory flooded in. It seemed like she had heard this phrase before when they were very young. The current memory should be the original owner's. Meanwhile, the Duke was still talking with the boatman. Lier looked up and saw the worried gazes of her husband and son. She quickly reassured them that everything was fine. This was the first time the three of them were out together, and she didn't want to ruin the atmosphere. However, she still mischievously turned her head and pretended to be angry. "Do you know how nervous I was about this trip?" The Duke was about to apologize. But then he saw Lier holding Caddy and smiling, telling him to take them to eat something delicious. The Duke realized that his wife had done this on purpose and smiled helplessly. "Well then, whatever my wife and son want next, I'll buy it." He turned to instruct the boatman to head to the nearest gravel town. This was the first time Lier had heard about this town. Judging by the Duke's expression, he seemed very familiar with it. After a short while, the group arrived at the town's dock. The Duke got off the boat and expressionlessly held Caddy's hand. Seeing this, Lier sighed, relieved that they wouldn't have to walk far and experience the miserable outcome of sitting for too long. The father and son's relationship was also getting better. She looked up and saw two hands, one large and one small, placed in front of her. They were saying the same thing, "Hold my hand." Lier had no choice but to hold both of their hands in the middle. However, their extravagant clothing made them stand out in the town, so they decided to find a clothing store to change outfits first. Under the Duke's lead, the three of them arrived at the clothing store. To their surprise, the shopkeeper was not only very enthusiastic but also recognized them. "I was planning to visit the Duke, but I'm so glad you came now." The Duke's demeanor left Lier quite surprised. It was obvious that they were very close, but why was that? Lier tried to focus on the clothes, trying not to be too sensitive. While doing so, she eavesdropped on their conversation. At first, they simply chatted about their recent happenings. But the last words left Lier shocked. The woman was actually jealous of both her husband and a man. While looking at clothes, Lier kept paying attention to their conversation. They seemed to be very close friends. Meanwhile, the Duke was still explaining the purpose of their visit, hoping for a comfortable robe to cover them. The shopkeeper immediately went to find a suitable robe. "Madam, please take a look at these." Lier's heart was still struggling. She felt the shopkeeper was just a familiar acquaintance of the Duke, yet for some reason she was very concerned. Could it be that she's jealous of them? The shopkeeper, not understanding, looked at Lier's changing expressions and thought she disliked his recommendation. After hesitating for a moment, Lier finally asked what was on her mind. "Are you and Jayan friends?" Hearing this, the shopkeeper made a surprised expression. "Oh my god, Madam actually called the Duke by his nickname." He then became serious again. "The Duke and I are indeed good friends." Lier immediately felt uneasy. What did this mean? "Madam, don't you recognize me? I'm a member of the Duke's Knight Order. I used to have long hair." Lier was instantly dumbfounded. "You were once a knight?" "Yes, because I found a new dream here. I had to give up my knight identity. I once swore to always serve the Duke, and I'm sorry for that. So every time the Duke's family comes to the town, my shop provides free clothes. Today, the Duke didn't come alone like usual, but brought you and the young master with him." Lier immediately felt embarrassed. She had no choice but to change the subject by focusing on the clothes. She didn't expect things to develop like this. Why was she feeling anxious because of it? In fact, the Duke's mind and eyes were entirely on Lier. Occasionally, he would have sudden memories. He had always wanted to get close to the Duke, just like the head gardener, as if part of the head gardener still resided inside her. At this moment, Caddy, now in his outer robe, hurried over. "Mom, let's go eat, I'm hungry." Lier also took off her hat and handed it to the shopkeeper to be taken to the carriage. "Sorry for asking you strange questions earlier. I think I misunderstood you." The shopkeeper was very happy and said it's all right. He saw that their relationship wasn't as bad as the rumors suggested. Lier immediately blushed and stuttered her thanks. The Duke quickly caught up and supported his wife. "You're walking too fast, you'll trip." Seeing this, the shopkeeper felt more at ease. It seemed the Duke could finally get along well with the girl he had secretly admired for so long. After a while, the group arrived at a nearby restaurant. Lier apologized to Caddy for not getting to row as they had planned. "Because of my carelessness, we had to disembark early." But Caddy didn't think so. Today I'm really happy. The river was so clear and the wind was so refreshing. I really liked it. But I also loved talking to you, Mom. Next time we can come again for the village's festival or maybe go to the next village. Let's look forward to our next trip. Soon, the food arrived. Lier reminded Caddy to eat carefully and blow on the food first. Caddy listened to his mom's advice and carefully blew on the food. But instead of eating it, he held it out to Lier. Mom, you eat first. This adorable and thoughtful gesture gave Lier a shock. Caddy was so cute, she really wished she had a camera to capture this. The food Caddy fed her was also so delicious. The Duke stood by and watched the two feed each other, not expecting that the next moment he himself would be left out. Pretending to be calm, she asked Lier what was the matter upon seeing the spoon handed to her. On the surface, feeling helpless but inwardly overjoyed, she calmly ate her dinner. Afterward, the three of them took a carriage back home. Caddy, who was a day late, fell asleep as soon as she got on the carriage. According to Caddy's maid, she had been so excited about today's trip that she hadn't slept all night. Lier looked at the sleeping face of the little one, still so cute. Thank you for arranging everything today. I hope we can find another opportunity to go out and play. The Duke, blushing, looked at his sleepy wife. Of course, Lier, there will be countless more moments like this. When they returned home, the servants were ready to carry Caddy, but Lier refused. I want to put Caddy to sleep with the Duke. The assistant quickly said, I hope the Duke will help put the young master to bed. Later, there are still a bunch of files in the office that need to be dealt with. Before he could finish his sentence, the maid punched him, making him dare not speak further. Just then, Caddy woke up. Lier told him to take a bath first and then they could sleep together. However, to her surprise, the little one directly refused. That's my room. I want to sleep alone so that Mom and Dad can have more time together. The boy decided to sleep alone that night. Caddy's decision surprised Lier. She thought the little one was mad at her, but it turned out he had a little secret with his dad and had promised not to sleep with Mom tonight. Lier curiously asked about the reason but was met with Caddy's refusal. This is a secret between me and Dad. I'm sorry, I can't tell Mom. You don't have to read a fairy tale tonight either. Mom must be tired. Lier gently patted the little one's head, feeling reassured. Caddy, you've really grown up. You even know to be considerate of Mom. She then curiously asked the Duke what the agreement was. The two of them acted as if they had already discussed it and kept the matter mysterious. So that night, contrary to Lier's expectations, she thought the three of them would be together, but it turned out to be just the Duke and her. Now, out of curiosity, he wouldn't say it either. She guessed that maybe Caddy wanted to make Mom and Dad closer, so she went ahead and grabbed the Duke's hand. But to her surprise, he was trembling nervously. Could it be that the Duke was still afraid he might suddenly regain his memory? I want to know what you think of today's friendship, Lier said, but before the Duke could answer, the head gardener's memories surged in. The head gardener cried out in despair, I can't love him. I don't deserve happiness, but I can't stop myself from wanting to say that I love him. If it's like this, then hate me instead. Lier suddenly realized that something was wrong. The head gardener seemed to love the Duke, but why would he push him away so ruthlessly? Something must have happened between them. The Duke noticed his wife's changed expression and quickly asked with concern, it must be that the carriage ride today was too tiring. You should rest early to recover. Lier knew that the Duke was still being cautious, afraid that one day he might suddenly regain his memory. If they were to truly restore their relationship, she needed to uncover the truth. Why, even though I was so harsh to you before, do you still love me? Why do you love me so blindly? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's because of your beautiful smile, or perhaps because you're sometimes clumsily cute, but I love you unconditionally. Do you believe that? Lier was silent. Even if I don't return the same feelings to you, do you still love me? The Duke hadn't expected his wife to suddenly discuss this. Lier explained, feeling as if this period of time had been a dream. You must still be worried that I'll regain my memory, right? How about telling me the truth? Why did our relationship turn into what it is now? The Duke wanted to speak but stopped. Maybe I'm selfish. I didn't want to tell you everything that happened. I just wanted to keep seeing your bright smile. Lier didn't want to miss this chance and still held on to the Duke, wanting him to speak the truth. Why do you keep avoiding it? I know you won't hurt me. Actually, even if you did, I wouldn't allow it. Please stop avoiding it. Lier then kissed the Duke on the lips. Faced with such an active wife, the Duke could no longer suppress the feelings in his heart. He hugged Lier and deepened the kiss. Caddy once again met his good friend after being refused by the Duke to reveal past events. The Duke's house servants seemed to have received some sort of order and kept silent about past events. In Lier's helplessness, she suddenly remembered the letter Lady Finzel had sent last time. From the last gathering, it seemed he was very aware of the rumors. He surely knows something about their situation. With this thought, she immediately ran to discuss with Caddy. Lady Finzel's son wants to invite you to play again. This time, it will just be the two of us as the only guests. You and your friend can play without being disturbed. Caddy thought about his mom's words. You mean Finzel's son wants to play with me? Lier answered, puzzled, yes, that's what the letter said. After hearing this, Cardi smiled and asked, then why don't we invite them to our house? This left Lier even more confused. Yes, I want to show my friend my mansion. Lier was very excited upon hearing this. Cardi had actually used the word friend, which meant he had moved away from the tragic storyline of the original. Mom will write a letter to Finzel right away. Cardi said, then I want to play alone with Rads. The agreed date soon arrived, and Cardi was eagerly looking forward to the meeting. Lier was also pleased, thinking that her son really liked this new friend. We must get along well today, okay, I will make sure of that. The maid came to inform them that Lady Finzel had arrived. Soon after, the two of them entered the family estate. Thank you for the invitation, madam. We are both very excited to be here. Little Rads also greeted them in a gentlemanly manner. Cardi has been looking forward to this day for a long time. The little one looked puzzled. Did you mean Cardi? Of course, Rads, I've been wanting to meet you. Lier looked at the two children, feeling confused. Are they really good friends? The next second, Cardi proposed to take Rads to tour the Duke's mansion. At this moment, Lier was extremely happy. Cardi had made a friend, and Lady Finzel also reminded her son to get along well. And so the two little ones went off to play by themselves. The mothers watched the children leave. Lady Finzel complained that her son didn't let her bring the flowing shadow ball, saying, if I had, such a cute moment would definitely need to be recorded. Then the two mothers began their pleasant afternoon tea time. Lier had specially prepared the best tea to entertain Lady Finzel, who was very interested in it. She thought of a friend of hers. Unfortunately, her friend was sick last time, so they didn't meet. Lier had already packed some tea leaves before they left. Then she heard Lady Finzel say that her friend had pink hair and loved her child very much. This made Lier think of the female protagonist from the novel, who also had pink hair. Her mother had long been tortured by illness. The female protagonist believed that misfortune started when her mother passed away. Has your friend's child turned 7 this year? Does she also have pink hair and clear eyes like hers? After hearing Lady Finzel's confirmed answer, Lier realized this was the female protagonist who was about to appear, the one who would be imprisoned by Cardi. At this point, Lady Finzel asked a soul-searching question. How do you know all this? You two have never met before. Lier was stunned and didn't know how to explain. In order to prevent her daughter-in-law from meeting the fate of being imprisoned by her son, Lier decided to change the female protagonist's tragic childhood, but was met with suspicion during her conversation with Lady Finzel. Lier quickly tried to dispel Lady Finzel's suspicion by claiming she had learned about children of Cardi's age. To her surprise, Lady Finzel actually believed it. So Cardi and my friend's daughter are only 1 year apart. Lier understood this clearly in her heart. In the original story, the female protagonist's mother died when she was 8. 1 more year and that would mark the beginning of her tragic fate. After that, the female protagonist's father, in his grief, began drinking heavily. Malicious people took advantage of this and caused him to rack up a huge debt, leading to the family's eventual downfall. The female protagonist's father, because of this, made a terrible decision. After his death, the female protagonist had no choice but to enter the Duke's house to work and pay off the debt. That was when Cardi took notice of her and imprisoned her. To prevent this from happening, Lier decided not to let the female protagonist's family collapse. The only way now was to cure her mother's illness. The female protagonist's mother's illness could be cured if treated early. In the novel, it was because of the expensive treatment costs that they gave up. However, Lier, who knew the plot well, had another method, but she needed to see her first, so she asked Lady Finzel if they could visit. She quickly got permission. This way, she could communicate with the female protagonist's mother and also see the future daughter-in-law. In the original story, she was a breathtaking beauty and must have been very cute as a child. Talking only about the female protagonist wasn't good enough. It was time to ask about that matter. Lady Finzel noticed that Lier seemed to have something to say. She actively changed the topic. I can see that you're worried. Don't worry. Whatever you want to say, I'm willing to listen. Lier, pretending she didn't often participate in social events, wanted to know what rumors about her were circulating. I used to always refuse to attend gatherings. I wonder if it caused a lot of misunderstandings. Lady Finzel immediately denied this idea. They are all jealous of you. There's nothing like that at all. This statement made Lier confused. Then Lady Finzel began recounting the romantic love story of Lier and the Duke in the social circle. You don't know how famous your love story is. The Duke fell in love with you when you were still a child. He even proposed to you and helped pay off your debt. When you said you just wanted to live a peaceful life, the wedding was held on a small scale. The rumors say that you only ever appeared in front of the Duke. Everyone is very curious about this. Mrs. Finzel excitedly recounted the story. You have no idea how thrilled I was when you said you would come to the birthday party. Lier felt extremely awkward after hearing this, as the story was like something out of a romance novel. It was difficult to reconcile this with the Duke and Caddy's reactions from the beginning. It was completely different from the rumors. Mrs. Finzel candidly admitted that their love story was the only rumor, telling Lier not to worry too much about it. It seemed that Mrs. Finzel couldn't provide any other information, so Lier realized she would have to rely on the sudden emergence of the original owner's memories. The topic then shifted to their sons. Lier also generously shared the diary she wrote for Caddy. Just as they were chatting about their children, the door suddenly knocked. A few incompetent servants following Caddy entered. "We are here to seek the lady's help." Hesitating, they said, "The young master and the Marquis' son are listening." Both of them immediately became tense and urged the servants not to hide anything. Only then did the servants reveal, "The young masters are destroying everything on the road, and we couldn't stop them." Lier immediately thought this was bad and followed them to the scene. Everywhere there were traces of burning flames, and the ground was littered with their chaotic footprints. Lier immediately called out to Caddy. The little one was all dirty and panicked, looking back. Those two little troublemakers have caused trouble again. By the time Lier arrived, the place was a complete mess. Caddy was pitifully looking at his mother. Lier quickly collected herself. Her son's expression clearly indicated he was seeking forgiveness, but when something was wrong, punishment was necessary. "Even if you look at me like that, I will not let you off. This is the family's training ground. You could hurt the people who protect us." "Mom, it's my fault. I just wanted to show Reddy's our training grounds." Just now, Caddy had brought Reddy's here and explained how the knights trained every day. However, Reddy's didn't seem to care. "Our family has even better knights." This made Caddy very displeased. "I heard you can use fire magic, right? Yeah, so what? Then can you drive away this heavy rain?" Caddy was instantly enraged by Reddy's tone. Without caring about the servants' attempts to stop him, Caddy tried to use magic. "If the lady finds out, she won't like it, so we need to keep this a secret from her. You can't tell Mom." Reddy's continued to provoke him. "Your fire looks like it will go out once the rain starts." Caddy instantly increased the intensity of his flame. "Then watch carefully." With Caddy's movement, the training ground was instantly engulfed by flames. Even the surrounding trees were set on fire, and the servants were terrified. Caddy looked smugly at Reddy's. "How about it?" Reddy's clapped his hands from the side. "I guess you don't have the ability to compare with me." To everyone's surprise, Reddy simply smiled. "Why would you think that?" "Watch closely," he said, and then used magic to split a distant tree in half. "How about that? My abilities are surely better than your magic, right?" Caddy was not about to back down. "If I wanted, I could burn all the trees here." "I can do that too." The two little ones decided to compete in the name of their families. After hearing this, the servants hurried forward to stop them. "Calm down, you can't fight." Little Caddy, however, no longer listened to the advice. "We're just having fun, don't come over." The ordinary people, afraid of things going wrong, hurried to report. After Caddy explained, he softly said, "I just don't want to lose to the Marquis' son and bring shame to the family." Lier understood her son's reasoning. This was all for the pride of the children. She told Caddy to go change his clothes and not catch a cold. Over there, Lady Finzel was also scolding her son. Lier suggested that Letty's also go change his clothes first. But Lady Finzel didn't bring spare clothes for her child this time. "It's fine, I can borrow Caddy's clothes for him to wear. If he catches a cold because of it, I'll feel guilty." Lady Finzel felt deeply apologetic but couldn't let her child catch a cold. She happily accepted Lier's suggestion. Just like that, the two little ones were handed over to the maid. A moment later, they both changed into clothes and walked downstairs hand in hand. Lier was very happy. It seemed they had made up. "Yes, Duchess, I'm very sorry today." "And Caddy, I sincerely apologize to you." Lier saw how well-behaved and polite Letty's was. She then turned to her son. "Caddy, I think you will apologize too, right?" The little one lowered his head and obediently apologized to Lady Finzel. Then the conversation shifted. "Finzel, Letty's, you're really terrible. The Duke has once again eavesdropped on our conversation." She decided to bring forward the plan for a second child. Caddy was very displeased with Letty's. The words spoken startled Lier. "It's okay, Duchess, I know he won't apologize to me." Lier was still pressing on, asking, "What does Letty's mean?" The next second, her eyes widened. "These two kids are talking again. So when will you come find me again?" "After the rainy season, I'll come again." They made a plan to have a proper match next time. Compared to Lier's confusion, Lady Finzel actually thought that after boys fought a few times, their relationship would definitely improve. Early the next morning, Caddy came to find his mom holding a book. "I want you to read this one to me today." Lier looked at the cover. It was a book called Asterisk the Winter Witch Asterisk. "I know fairy tale books are a bit childish for me, but I still want you to read it, even if it might make your throat hurt." Lier was touched by her little one's thoughtfulness. She opened the book and started telling the story. When winter covers the land with snow, people will see a witch in certain places. She possesses great magical powers and can grant any wish. The witch can roam anywhere in the kingdom. To relieve her daily boredom, she began using human souls to fulfill wishes. Many people were willing to risk everything for the ones they loved. This plot caught Lier's attention. It also sounded very familiar. Before she could think too much, Cardi interrupted, "Mom, what happened to them next?" Unexpectedly, Cardi liked the complex and difficult-to-understand sentences. Later, no matter how high the odds were, the witch never lost. This was all a scheme by the witch to collect human souls. The strong emotions within a soul would make the witch's magic grow more powerful. "Mom, does this mean the stronger the emotions, the stronger the magic?" "Then I must be stronger than Letty's because I love you so much, Mom." Lier didn't expect her little one to be so sweet. She hurriedly hugged her precious son. "Mom loves you very, very much too, Cardi." "I know Mom loves me, but what about Dad? Does Mom love Dad?" This question made Lier instantly shy. A series of Duke's handsome faces quickly flashed through her mind, and her heartbeat also involuntarily quickened. If this isn't love, how else could it be explained? Yes, though she's too scared, Mom loves Dad too. Lier knows that the Duke likes the head gardener, not her. However, even so, she still likes the Duke. The little one didn't understand what Mom meant. Why wouldn't she dare to love Dad? Lier had to explain that the Duke had been too harsh on her in the past. The former her never imagined living this kind of life now. "If you ask if Dad loves Mom too, I think he would say yes." Just then the Duke's voice suddenly appeared. "So you're reading a fairy tale to our son?" Lier was greatly startled by the sudden appearance of the Duke. "Could you make some noise next time before getting so close?" She then remembered what she had just said and blushed, wondering if the Duke had heard her words. From looking at the Duke's face now, it was impossible to tell. "I was just going to talk to Cardi about yesterday's events." Lier breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed like he hadn't heard. "But since Cardi already admitted her mistake, please stop scolding her. I've already thought about it, but she still needs to be educated." Lier held her son, blinking her big eyes, hoping the Duke would let Cardi off. "But the child is only 6 years old. If Dad scolds her too harshly, you must tell Mom." The little one completely ignored it, bouncing up and grabbing his dad's hand. The Duke hadn't expected his son to take the initiative to hold her hand. So he lifted Cardi up, but just before they left, the Duke suddenly turned around and looked at Lier. "Before bedtime tonight, I'll give you the answer you want. See you tonight, Lier." At this moment, Lier was completely stunned. Looking at the Duke's expression, it was clear he had heard everything. It seemed like he wanted to prove something, to take some kind of action. The woman really has some kind of deal with the witch. After reading the witch's story to her son during the day, that night Lier dreamt of her. The witch said, "Time passes so quickly. The promised day is almost here. Do you remember?" Lier was instantly startled awake. She wondered if the conversation with the witch had been a dream. The Duke noticed his wife suddenly waking up and knew that she must have had a nightmare again. Lier was confused and asked the Duke, "Why do you say that? Did you often have nightmares before?" The Duke wanted to speak but hesitated. He wet a towel and placed it on Lier's head. "You need to rest for now." "But I want to know, will you tell me? Does the nightmare have something to do with my memory loss?" The Duke could only talk about some things from his childhood. They first met when they were kids. Lier had greeted the Duke's wife by holding her hand. However, the next second she tripped because she was too nervous. The Duke couldn't help but laugh, earning a stern glare from little Lier. He thought it was just a chance meeting, but in the days that followed, there was always a little girl nearby, although his personal space was being disturbed. He couldn't help but develop a fondness for this seemingly cute girl. Every time they met, he was drawn to her. "Now all I can tell you is this." Lier pouted in displeasure, always the same, never able to say more. "A few years ago, I made you a promise that we would be like we were when we were little. I didn't expect that I would break my word, only fulfilling the promise when you lost your memory. Therefore, I don't want you to regain your memory." Lier wanted to ask something more but was stopped. "You should rest well now. Don't be afraid, I will stay by your side and you won't have nightmares anymore." However, after that night, a distance remained between them. Even the maid noticed and, crying, asked Lier if she had argued with the Duke, why they suddenly started sleeping in separate rooms. Who knew that the mistress herself was even angrier? Why not ask the Duke? What's the reason she suddenly wanted to sleep in a separate room? Lier was very troubled, as without knowing the original owner's past, there would be no progress. After that day, the Duke went to another room, claiming that he had work to do and would stay up late, and even the assistant could not see the Duke's figure. This behavior was clearly intentional avoidance. Thinking about it, Cardi suddenly ran in, calling for Mom. With big eyes blinking, Cardi asked if she had argued with Dad. "Was it because I did something bad?" Lier didn't expect the child to think it was her fault, and hurriedly comforted the little one, saying it was just that Mom and Dad encountered some problems. Mom wants to ask Dad some things she doesn't want to talk about. The little one clearly didn't understand. "You two are arguing over such a small thing." "We didn't argue, we were just sorting our thoughts, but you're not sleeping in the same room anymore." Lier laughed and hugged her son. She used to be the one most opposed to her being with Dad, but unexpectedly, the little one suddenly spread his arms like an adult and shook his head. Mom, you don't hate Dad, right? You still want to get along with him, right? Lier was left dumbfounded by her son's sudden question. Well, yes, that's true. Caddy then jumped down and snapped his fingers. I've finished talking with Mom, now you two can take over. Just as Lier was puzzled, two people suddenly came in. This is the young master's order, please forgive us, madam. Just like that, they lifted Lier up, one on the left and one on the right. The little one stood by, watching everything. Mom, you taught me to be kind to friends. Then why are you arguing with Dad? Lier already had a feeling about what her son was trying to do. Caddy walked with light steps to open the door. Then, Mom, it's all yours. After receiving the order, the two began walking out. No matter how Lier called for her son, it was of no use. With her son's help, the young couple finally cleared up the misunderstanding. Caddy instructed the guards to take Lier to the Duke's office. At this moment, the two were sitting face to face, feeling extremely awkward. Though Lier also wanted to clear things up with the Duke, it wasn't in such an awkward situation. The Duke was also caught off guard. Clearly, his son had told him he wanted to ask about some superpower-related matters and instructed him to wait in the office. But he didn't expect to end up with his wife being carried in. He clearly knew about Caddy's plan. Yes, it was the son who suddenly had people carry me over. The Duke finally shyly admitted his mistake, explaining that he had been avoiding Lier. I knew you did it on purpose. Why did you do that? The Duke said in a soft voice, embarrassed. It was because I didn't want you to regain your memory. What I said about the past was because I saw you having nightmares. I couldn't bear it and spoke without thinking, but afterward I regretted it. I knew you would eventually regain your memory. Thinking of avoiding you and delaying as much as possible, Lier's heart had already been moved after hearing this, but she still blamed the Duke for not telling the truth. But the Duke was still afraid that these days were just an illusion, worried that the imagined future would happen. Lier suddenly tightened her grip on the Duke's hand, telling him not to be afraid, everything was just an illusion. Even if the memory returns in the future, it won't change the feelings of the present. I will do my best to tell you, so without hesitation, she kissed the Duke on the lips. I love you and this will never change. This made the Duke feel even more guilty, thinking he was selfish. Lier also confessed that she didn't blame him and wouldn't inquire about the past anymore. She hoped the Duke would go back to his room and sleep. Their relationship had been so unusual that everyone was very concerned. After the couple cleared up their misunderstandings, a month later it was time to visit the daughter-in-law. After confirming what to bring with the maid, she reminded her to take care of Caddy since she might not return until the next day. Lady Finzel was already waiting at the door. She was looking forward to discussing the children together. More importantly, she was worried that Lier might feel awkward meeting Lady Finzel privately, so she arranged for the three of them to meet together. She also kindly asked Lier to call her by her first name, Nixie. Lier was very happy as this meant her relationship with the male lead's mother had progressed. Caddy would definitely have a bright future. Soon, the two arrived at Lady Finzel's home, where she had been waiting in the reception room. It's an honor that the Duchess could come to see me, she said, also taking out the tea that Lier had sent. Vinci told me this tea helps relieve pain. It's wonderful to have tea to replace the bitter medicine I've been taking. But Duchess, is there something you want to talk about? Lier was suddenly called upon and panicked, quickly thinking of how to present her purpose. She decided to use the original excuse with Lady Finzel. I heard your daughter is about the same age as my son and also loves her child very much. I think we can become close friends as well. Lady Finzel gladly accepted this explanation. At that moment, a little girl ran in. Lier instantly recognized her as the female lead from the novel. She hadn't expected her to be even cuter than described in the book. The little one curiously looked at the guests in the house. The next second, Lier made eye contact with her and immediately exclaimed, "What a beautiful lady." Then she realized she might have overstepped and quickly apologized. Lier was instantly charmed by the little one, not understanding how her son could have locked up such a cute girl. She immediately introduced herself to her daughter-in-law, and the little one obediently greeted her. Lady Finzel wanted her daughter to go rest, but Nia hadn't heard her bedtime story yet. To their surprise, the next second, Lady Finzel started coughing violently and then collapsed backward. The sudden event caused both of them to panic. Lady Finzel quickly instructed someone to call the doctor. It seemed that Lady Finzel's condition was worse than expected. Thankfully, the doctor arrived quickly. Nia was also very worried about her mother's health, as this was the first time she had seen her spit blood. Lier patiently comforted her, saying, "Don't worry, as long as your mom rests well, she will get better." In her heart, she was anxious and wanted to quickly find a way to treat it. However, the current situation made it difficult to have a private conversation. She could only start by understanding the situation from Nia. The little one also wanted to spend more time with Lier. Fortunately, Lady Finzel wanted to check on her friend as well. Nia said she could stay with the lady and let the maids take care of her mother. Thus, the living room was left with only the two of them. Lier stood aside, wiping the little one's tears. Confidently, Lier asked the child, "Do you believe in fairies?" Nia's eyes immediately lit up. "Are they the kind of fairies that bring good luck?" Lier then told Nia a very popular fairy tale. In the cold winter, a child got lost in the forest. He was very hungry and hadn't eaten anything all day. Fortunately, he found some bread under a tree. However, an old woman appeared and asked if the child could share the bread. The child looked at her and gave her half of the bread. The old woman also gave her blessing, "You are a kind child. The fairy would give you a special gift." After saying this, she disappeared. In her place appeared a young fairy. The child received the fairy's blessing and was soon reunited with his family. After the child heard the story, it would be much easier to explain. As expected, children all believe in fairy tales. "Do you believe I am a fairy who brings good luck?" Nia clearly didn't expect to be so lucky. "You have the same hair color as a fairy, and you are as beautiful as they are. That's when I will believe you." Unexpectedly, the little girl now spoke in such a charming way. Then she made a promise with Nia. "Everything we talked about today is a secret. Now I'll give you a lucky blessing. If you do exactly as I say, your mother will get better." Little Nia's eyes were filled with admiration as she eagerly watched Lier hand something to Nia. The little one looked at the object in her hand, puzzled. "What is this?" In order to protect the future daughter-in-law's freedom, Lier decided to help in advance. Nia looked at the flower in her hand with confusion. It seemed to have withered. Lier explained, "It's not withered, it just didn't grow well. This is one of the gifts I brought today. You must mix it with water while your mother is taking a bath." The little one blinked her big eyes and asked, "Will this bring good luck?" "Yes, but you must do exactly as I say. Don't forget, it must have moonlight. Can you help me with that?" Nia quickly nodded, saying she would do it well. "Thank you so much, fairy." Lier looked at the little bundle in her arms, thinking how cute she was. She increasingly hoped that Nia would become her future daughter-in-law. Now that Cardi had been properly educated, she could find an opportunity for the two of them to meet early. This way, their relationship would have a good start. "Nia, find a chance to come to my house as a guest." That evening, Lady Finzel sat on the bed, feeling lost. She really enjoyed having afternoon tea with the other ladies, but unfortunately her health had been worsening recently. She didn't know how much longer she would live. She hoped she could see Nia grow up. While lost in thought, she heard someone knock on the door. Then she saw her daughter run in and asked, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" "I've come to fulfill my promise to the fairy." Lady Finzel immediately had a puzzled look on her face. Before she could react, she was pulled by her daughter. "Where are we going, Mom?" Nia had already prepared the bathwater and led her mother to the bathroom. "Today, let's use this to take a bath, okay? The reason we're bathing here is because Mom's bathroom doesn't have a view of the moon. The fairy said we must let the moonlight touch the water's surface." Mrs. Fennel had been completely confused by her daughter calling her a fairy, but seeing how actively her daughter was preparing, she decided to play along. For some reason, she actually wanted to cooperate with her daughter's little prank, so she got into the bathtub and hugged Nia. Amazingly, the wilted flowers began to bloom one by one. Mrs. Fennel noticed this change. Just a moment ago, when Nia came in, the flowers didn't react at all. Nia picked up a blooming flower and excitedly shouted the fairy was telling the truth. Mrs. Fennel, curious, asked, "Who is the fairy you're talking about?" "Just like the fairy tales Mom tells me. The fairy said that as long as we do as she says, we will get better and she will bring us good luck." Mrs. Fennel didn't know who had told Nia this. But strangely, her body actually felt much better and her head no longer felt dizzy. She had never experienced such an effect from medicine before. She hadn't received treatment from the new doctor recently or taken any different medicine. Why was she suddenly feeling better? Looking at her excited daughter, she began to believe. "Are you sure the fairy gave you this?" "Yes, she said that if we continue every day for 100 days, good luck will always stay with us." Mrs. Fennel realized that good luck meant her illness might be cured. At that moment, Nia excitedly shouted, "These flowers are like the fairy dancing." Mrs. Fennel nodded in agreement, like the fairy's hair, and suddenly realized, like the fairy, doesn't that mean the Duchess? Could she know how to treat this illness? However, it was common for the Duchess to help lower-tier nobles, although Mrs. Fennel didn't know why, as long as the child could be happy. She suddenly remembered what Lier said earlier about how it's hard to find nobles who care so much about children. Maybe Lier could understand. She deeply cherished and cared for her daughter. Nia seemed mischievous, but her heart was pure and kind. She hoped to have enough time to stay by her daughter's side until she grew up. All this time, she had silently endured and waited for her fate. In truth, she didn't want to die at all. She loved her daughter so much, how could she bear to leave her behind? Nia saw her mom crying and hurriedly comforted her. Mrs. Fennel hugged her adorable daughter. "From now on, I'll always stay by your side." That night when Lier returned home, she found that both Cardi and the Duke were still in the office. She secretly listened to their conversation from outside the door. Caddy, with a serious face, said, "A dress that's the same color as Mom's eyes would be the best." But the Duke didn't agree. "Lier looks like the legendary mermaid, so I think blue suits her best." Lier immediately blushed. What are these two talking about? She wanted to eavesdrop, but it was so awkward that she pretended not to hear anything and hurriedly went back to her room. Just as Lier was about to slip away, she was caught by a pair of small hands. "Mom, when did you come back?" Facing her son's expectations for his brother, the Duke surprisingly agreed to fulfill his promise with silence. After being caught eavesdropping, Lier awkwardly asked what father and son were talking about. To her surprise, their answers were surprisingly consistent. "We're talking about you." This made Lier feel even more embarrassed. How could they say that right to her face? Feeling shy, she quickly changed the topic. "Since you finished your work, has Caddy finished his homework?" To her surprise, both of them answered in unison, "Done." At that moment, a servant came to remind Caddy that it was time for class. "But I still want to stay with Mom for a little longer." After Lier persuaded him, the little one reluctantly went off to class. Now only the young couple remained in the meeting room. After Caddy left, the Duke remained immersed in his own thoughts. This made Lier suspect something was wrong. She quickly approached and asked if something was troubling him. The Duke quickly shook his head to indicate there was nothing wrong, but Lier could tell he was lying. "Then if I tell you, will you comfort me?" "Of course, what kind of special comfort do you want?" Actually, Lier knew that what troubled the Duke the most at the moment might be his fear that she would regain her memory. "Now, tell me, who disturbed your mood?" "If you knew, would you scold that person?" "Of course not, no one can disturb my husband's mood." "I'm serious." The Duke grabbed his wife's hand, blushing, and praised Lier for being too cute. "If you keep tempting me, things could get dangerous. If I become too dependent on you, you won't be able to escape. I like you, so I want to get as close as possible." After saying that, he prepared to leave. "I just came back from Lady Finzel's. I'm a bit tired. I hope you won't push yourself too hard. I'll go rest now." After saying that, she left the Duke standing alone. The next day, the Duke recalled his conversation with Caddy from the day before. The little one had heard that if Mom and Dad sleep together, there will be a little brother. But so much time had passed and still no sign of one. So Caddy came to ask when his father would fulfill that promise. "I will continue to try and maintain the current situation, but please keep your promise to us. I want to see Mom always happy. Before that, I will maintain the current state of our family." The words from his son made the Duke realize, our family is the most important. So he solemnly made a promise to his son, "I will make sure to do it." "So when is our next family trip?" "I've even decided on the color of Mom's dress." As they were discussing this intensely, Caddy saw his mom hiding outside the door. The Duke hadn't expected his wife to appear at that moment. Fortunately, she only heard the latter half of the conversation and didn't hear him silently thinking about Caddy. The butler, smiling, walked over. "Has the Duke thought of something? You even smiled." "I've been working perfectly recently, but I haven't seen you smile. Every time your wife and son come here, you're so harsh with me." "Stop saying useless things. We need to finish today's tasks quickly so Lier doesn't become suspicious." "But about Earl Owen's letter, are you really not going to tell the lady and just deal with it?" The Duke's expression suddenly turned unusually serious. "I've told you already, burn it immediately before Lier finds out." "But wasn't the lady part of the Earl's family before she married?" The Duke seemed indifferent, so what if she was? To the butler, Lier used to be very cold toward the Duke's household, but had been very warm toward the Earl when he came. "Duke, if you want to build a good image in front of your wife, why would you privately handle the Count's heart?" The Duke, however, had a different perspective from the butler. He understood his wife. Their relationship is not as good as you think. The Count simply treats Lier as a tool for the family. Every time he visits, he tries every possible way to borrow money. The last person Lier saw before losing her memory was him. "At that time, I couldn't do anything. Now it's different. No matter what the cost is, I will protect Lier. Now go bring me the documents I've prepared. I have a special task for that person." Lier is finally about to approach the truth of her memory loss. The next morning, she was told that her husband was going to see the Emperor. To her surprise, the Duke had already left before she woke up. She felt disappointed, thinking she hadn't had the chance to say goodbye. But she suddenly noticed someone had appeared beside her. "I haven't left. I won't leave without seeing you." Lier was startled by the sudden appearance of the Duke and his words. She blamed her husband for always appearing suddenly and that he should have woken her up earlier. She almost missed sending him off. "You were sleeping so soundly. How could I bear to disturb you?" "So if I hadn't woken up, would you have ignored the Emperor's invitation?" "I was thinking about it, but wait for a few days. I'll be back soon." Lier also knew that her husband had work to do. The first time she received the Duke after his return from an expedition, she thought she was dreaming. "This time, I'll still wait for your return. Take care of yourself." After the Duke left, Lier lay alone on the big bed. The maid saw this and asked if the lady felt lonely. "Yes, even though he just left, I already feel lonely." At this moment, she suddenly remembered about Lady Finzel. The maid had come to deliver a letter from her. After reading it, Lier sighed in relief. Lady Finzel had recovered a lot, and at the end, she had specifically thanked the fairy. Lier immediately blushed, realizing that Nia had told her mother. It would be so awkward the next time they met. However, the future had changed because of this. This way, Nia's background wouldn't be as tragic. She also had to come up with an excuse for the treatment method. She couldn't just say she read it in a novel. While thinking about this, she unknowingly fell asleep. When she woke up again, she was in complete darkness. Around her, there was the constant sound of crying. Lier, puzzled, walked forward and saw a girl crying. When she turned her head, she was completely stunned. It was little Lier. "What's the matter? Why are you crying so sadly?" For some reason, seeing little Lier cry so sadly made her feel inexplicably sorrowful. "I think you still don't know, but do you really want me to tell you? If you do this, you will remember forever. You won't be able to live happily like now." Lier didn't want to live an unclear life. Only by knowing the truth could she truly improve her relationship with the Duke. "Please help me restore my memory." Little Lier became even sadder after hearing this, questioning Lier why she must know, why she couldn't accept a chance for happiness. "You will hurt the people who are important to you again." "I won't. No matter what we've been through in the past, now I know how important the people around me are." Little Lier finally gave up trying to persuade her, realizing that hiding things forever wasn't a solution. "I know you already like them very much now, so I will teach you how to enter the memories. A baby appeared in my life and I never wanted to face him again. That was our father, Marquis Owen." Lier groggily got up, thinking about the last words the head gardener said in her dream. "Father is the key to unlocking the memories." While still thinking, she was interrupted by Cardi. "Mom, are you busy? I learned a new sword technique and want to show everyone." After getting approval, Cardi happily ran outside to wait for her mom to change clothes. However, the maid kept trying to stop Lier from going out. "Is something happening today, or are you hiding something?" Lier still couldn't get any answers from the maid. As soon as she stepped outside, she heard a lot of noise. Cardi pulled her mom and urged her to take another route. Lier was worried that something had happened. Since the Duke wasn't home, she had to understand the situation. She thought about going over there first to check before watching her son perform. However, Cardi found an excuse to try to get Lier to return to the room. The servants at the door were very nervous when they saw Lier and all rushed forward to stop her from going further. Lier realized the problem. Their coordinated actions must have been arranged by the Duke. She suspected there was someone outside that she wasn't allowed to meet. In the next moment, a man appeared in front of her. "Long time no see, Lier." When danger approached, Cardi immediately wanted to protect his mom. Due to the Duke's orders, the guards prevented the Count from entering the residence. When the Count saw Lier, he questioned why she wasn't allowed to enter. Lier knew that he had intentionally come when the Duke wasn't around, but this was also the best opportunity to learn about the head gardener's past. The Count would surely speak freely about it. So she allowed the guards to let him in. "The Duke isn't here, and as the lady of the house, I have the right to make decisions. I don't want to repeat this, let him in." The guards then let him in. The Count shamelessly asked Lier, "Why are you receiving your father like this? I can't believe you're letting them treat me this way. We are family." Lier didn't want to say much and directly instructed the maid to take him to the meeting room. The moment she saw the Count, she felt an overwhelming sense of disgust. It made people wonder what kind of person her father was to provoke such a reaction. Little Cardi also noticed his mom's expression and worriedly asked her not to make such a face. "It scares me. You always had that expression before." "Sorry, Cardi, Mom is just feeling a bit strange. I promise I won't make that scary face again. Every time I see you, I want to smile. You're such a cute and gentle child. I'm so happy." "Don't worry, Mom won't make that face anymore." Lier knew Cardi's inner unease. He was afraid his mom would become like she used to be. "Now Mom has to go and receive guests. You stay in your room and wait for me." To her surprise, the little one firmly insisted on going with her. "I promised Dad I'd protect Mom's smile. Since Father isn't here, I will protect you. If that person hurts Mom, I'll burn him to ashes." Lier was very moved by her son's protective words. She felt like she could manage him. "You have to make sure to control yourself, okay?" Little Cardi obediently agreed to his mom. After entering the meeting room, Lier placed her son on the sofa. To her surprise, her father's mocking voice came again. "You two seem very close now, but before you always looked at him coldly. Maybe it's because we share the same blood. Do you want to raise your lowly child?" Lier didn't expect the Count to speak like that in front of the child. She immediately stopped him angrily while Cardi silently controlled the flames. "I think you haven't properly disciplined him. Are you trying to burn me, your grandfather?" Cardi also confronted the Count without hesitation. "If you dare hurt Mom, I'll do the same to you. I won't forgive you, Grandpa." Lier quickly told Cardi to retract the flames, and the Count added fuel to the fire. "Don't you want to know why I say you're just as lowly as your mother? Why don't you leave? I think we still have something to discuss." Cardi immediately stated that he wouldn't leave. "I can't let Mom be alone with someone like you." Lier knew that the Count was a despicable person. If Cardi stayed, she didn't know what else he might say. The last thing she wanted was for Caddy to be hurt. Caddy, can you trust Mom? Rather than being a mother who's protected by her son, I want to be the mother who can overcome difficulties. Can you leave the room for a moment? I'll talk to Grandpa alone. Caddy was very reluctant, but when he heard Mom say that, he could only remind her to call him if anything happened while walking out. As soon as Caddy left, the Count's laughter echoed behind him. I see you've tamed them well. Now the Duke and his son are in the palm of your hand. Since the troublesome person has left, let's get straight to the point. I need some business funds. This made Lier feel a headache. It was as if this same thing had happened countless times before. Then the head gardener's memories flashed into her mind. This time, the Duke returned from an expedition with quite a bit of wealth. If I give him to you, I can exchange him for funds to pay off debts. Even though the head gardener resisted fiercely, the Count didn't listen at all and even resorted to force. As far as I know, your business ventures have never been profitable. You're well aware of that, right? This should be enough to prove everything I've done for you. The Count didn't expect Lier to refuse his request, which made him even angrier. You're just a lowly, mediocre child. Shouldn't you be grateful that I gave you a noble life? Lier had never imagined the head gardener's background. Her memories also rushed into her mind. Mom had the same hair color as him. They had once lived a happy life, but it was suddenly shattered when soldiers sent by the Count came to take the head gardener away. No matter how much Mom cried and shouted, it couldn't change the fact that he was going to be taken away. Lier's background was finally revealed. She was not the Count's real daughter but had been taken because of her eye color. Little Lier was taken to the Count's mansion, where she couldn't even keep her original name. She was forced to become a mistress's child just because of her good looks. This is how she became the Lier everyone knew. Mom also came to work at the Count's mansion as a maid. Occasionally, they could play together during free time, but they still had to be cautious in their interactions. Mom was afraid of being discovered by the Countess, while little Lier thought the Countess didn't like her and thus wouldn't pay much attention to her. How could the Countess not like you? You're so beautiful and cute. Little Lier knew that only Mom in the Count's mansion thought that way. However, the truth was different. The next day, she was called to the Countess. Lier had a bad feeling and quickly wondered if there were any mistakes in her recent work. In the past, the Countess would never summon her. Don't be so afraid. I just feel that I've been too cold toward you in the past. Now I want to take better care of you. Do you have anything troubling you lately? Lier didn't understand why the Countess was asking this. I've noticed you've been enjoying playing with the nanny lately. Why do you like being with the nanny instead of your mom? Lier was terrified after hearing this. Being with her biological mother was her only time to feel free, but she didn't dare say it out loud. The Countess then said, if you don't like going out with me, then get out of my sight. Little Lier, still thinking the Countess wasn't too angry, couldn't help but notice how strange the Countess looked. That night her mom came into Lier's room. Looking at her daughter's sleeping face, tears streamed down. I'm sorry, I promised to protect you for a lifetime. She then placed the pendant into Lier's hand. I don't think I can keep that promise anymore. The next morning, Lier woke up and saw the pendant left by her mom. She suddenly realized what had happened and started calling for the nanny. As expected, the nanny had already been replaced. Lier could only cry and ask where the nanny had gone. I think you should eat breakfast first. The Countess won't like you in this state. Little Lier knew that the Countess had definitely done something. She immediately wiped her tears and decided to go meet her. She had to beg for the Countess's forgiveness now. As soon as she entered the meeting hall, she immediately knelt before the Countess. It's all my fault. Please give her back to me. What have I taken from you? Do you really want to see your mother so badly? I heard the Northern Duke's family needs servants. I'll send her there. Don't be so sad. I plan to visit her workplace this summer. Will you come with me? The Count then added, we can take this opportunity to visit the Duke's residence. Their son is still a little boy. I hope you can catch his attention. Use your face to entice him. This is the repayment for how we raised you. The memory ended and the Count continued speaking to himself. If you don't want your husband to know your shameful origins. Lier retorted, the Duke wouldn't care about these things. Then what if you knew he is the son of the murderer who killed your mother? The boy, noticing his mother was upset, rushed to comfort her. He even brought his favorite toy bear to cheer her up. Meanwhile, her father was still threatening Lier with her mother's grave. You better obediently follow my orders. If you disturb your mother's grave because of this, I think she would be very upset. Lier didn't expect the Count to be so malicious. She thought maybe she had been threatened this way before, and it had led to the gardener's tragic end. But now she was different. She wouldn't be threatened by the Count's words anymore and firmly asked him to leave the Duke's estate. The guard Wen Sheng rushed in and immediately restrained the Count, who was still cursing. Little Caddy anxiously entered the room to check on his mom. When it was time to sleep that night, he brought his favorite stuffed bear. Mom, are you okay? I brought the little bear I love to cheer you up. Lier was deeply moved. The little one was comforting her. Can I sleep with you before Dad gets back? Lier agreed to her son's request. They hadn't done this in a long time. Looking at her son's obedient appearance, Lier thought about how cold she had been to him before. How hurtful that must have been for Caddy. Caddy, do you hate mommy? The little one lowered his head and was silent for a moment. I did a lot of things before, but you never gave me a hug. It seems I really am a bad mother. But even though mom is very indifferent, I still love her. At that time, I thought, if only you could give me a smile. Suddenly, mom started to smile at me. At first, I was still very angry. Why would you suddenly treat me so well? But then it didn't continue because I really, really love you, mom. Even now, I still love you. Lier hugged her adorable son. Actually, when she was talking to the count earlier, she had remembered everything, even seeing that Tokyo witch. At that time, she held her mother's only keepsake and asked the witch to let her go back to see her mother. Unexpectedly, the witch refused the request but gave Lier 10 years. Back then, she thought without a mother, even time was meaningless. But the witch laughed. She thought Lier was lying and said she would have to fight her if she was so confident. If you're so confident you won't lose, I'll give you a new life, no cost. There you won't spend your days in sadness and pain. You'll live a peaceful life, loved. How do you feel about that? As her thoughts returned, Lier looked at her son in her arms. She remembered how she had suffered every day before, unable to endure it, thinking if only she could change everything and return to her mother's side. But I can't do that. That's the only way your future won't turn out so tragic. I used to think that the wings torn apart in the novel referred to the heroine who was trapped in the Duke's mansion.